Welcome to the Brian Nhira podcast. My name is Brian Nhira, and I am your host. Listen, in order to be successful in the music industry, you must have people along your journey who stop and take time to give you advice and tips for maximizing your career. On today's episode, I'm joined by one of Christian music's most successful managers. All right, everybody, I am here with one of Christian music's most successful managers. Nick Barre grew up in South Florida, North Palm Beach / Palm Beach Gardens area to be exact. From as early as he can remember, he was completely fascinated by all things related to pop culture, particularly music. He spent countless hours listening to the radio, playing records, studying liner notes, and perfecting his air guitar skills. He knew the power and impact that music had on his worldview and thought that it would be amazing to be a part of the process of connecting artists with an audience looking for inspiration, truth, and meaning. He thrives on helping artists clarify and focus their uniqueness and then collaborating with them on the way to best connect them with their desired audience. He has over 3 decades of experience in the music industry, and his current artist roster includes Christian music giants Casting Crowns, hip-hop extraordinaire KB, and prolific songwriter / producer David Leonard. Please welcome to the Brian Nhira podcast, Nick Barre.
Dude, I've never been like a rapper or a hip-hop artist before.
Yeah.
But now I know what it feels like to have a hype man. That felt so good. That was... Hey, I'm gonna like when I wake up and like turn the alarm clock
just turn it off.
I'm gonna like turn off the alarm clock and then I'm gonna hit that intro.
Absolutely.
Every single day.
I want you to be reminded who you are every single day.
And I'll remind my family too of all these great. No, thank you. It is such an honor to be here.
Yes.
We met 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yep.
And just taken back by not just your skill and your talent, but your humility, your passion to serve others. I mean, it's just the work ethic and drive that you have to do this podcast, but just the way that you pour into others, care about others, and obviously this podcast is an extension of that.
Yeah,
so thank
absolutely.
you very. It's an absolute honor. Any excuse I have to hang out with you,
Yes.
I'll do it. So,
well, just like Nick said, we met a couple years ago. We're both alumni of Oral Roberts University, and so a few years back, we were both asked to be a part of essentially a music committee at the university. And so we went over there, and we had the opportunity to meet. We quickly became friends. But we both live in Nashville, Tennessee. So on multiple occasions a year, we get together. And honestly, what Nick does is he fields all of the questions that I have about the music industry, about artistry, and about how to be the most effective I can be in my career. And so I'm so glad to have you on. Thank you for saying yes. If it's okay, I want to jump right into my questions.
Boom.
Okay?
Let's do this.
There was something on your website that on Proper Management, which is the company that you own and that you have your artists under. There was something that I read under your bio that I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, so I'm
scared.
I'm gonna read the quote.
I hope it's true.
I'm gonna read the quote. You said, "Call me crazy, but I actually like that we're living in such a moment of extraordinary change in music business history. The rules are literally changing weekly, and I like the challenge of learning how to best navigate a strategic artist development path." So my first question based off of that quote is, how have you in 3 decades seen the music industry change since you began working in it?
It's completely different. I mean, it's just a different, on so many levels. You think about, here's one thing. For decades, the music industry was based on physical product.
Yes.
So to get your record into stores was critical. That distribution element was really, really hard. And if we had met 12, 14 years ago and you wanted to have a national platform for your music, it would be really good advice to say, okay, if you want people to be able to consume your music around the world or around the country, they can only do that through physical product, which means distribution is king.
Yeah.
And the only way, respectfully, that you're going to get a distribution deal is by signing with a major label. And that's your ticket to distribution, which is the ticket to consumers.
Yeah.
You and I could do a duet and we could get a distribution deal within, if you give me 2.5 minutes, I can get you, we can release a song tomorrow around the world. Like that is not, if I just say the name of an artist or say the name of a song, you can listen to it immediately after this podcast interview. Yeah. That is extraordinary. So there's definitely been a trade-off. I think the artist is more empowered than ever.
Wow.
I also feel like the consumer is more empowered than ever.
Yeah.
So I feel like people that do what I do, whether it's at a record label, management, wherever, we're just trying to connect the resources of an artist with the needs of the consumer. And that's changing. You think about the way that you consume movies or television. It is just, it's changing. And so that to me is, it's really an extraordinary time. And I'll say something to the people listening to this. For decades, there was rules, laws, if you will, of this is how the music industry works.
Yes.
And they were actually factual and true. There were a few outliers, but the more experience I had learning those rules and how things worked, then there's no way that somebody in their 20s, early 20s could have even like there's no book they could have read. I developed that knowledge through actually working at a label or whatever. Problem is, well, not problem, opportunity is that the music industry is changing. So that person in their early 20s or late teens has strategic advantages by not knowing the rules.
Wow.
And so I'm 56 years old. TikTok, I mean, if someone's in their teens or 20s, they should know more about TikTok than me. If I know more about TikTok than them, then that they should be embarrassed by that. No, I'm kidding. But it's exciting because it means there's a lot of new opportunities. And even the rules of streaming, of how to get a song on strategic playlists, those rules change. It feels like about every 6 months. And so...
Can we talk a little bit about those rules?
Absolutely.
Can we talk a bit, because I think a lot of people listening to this will want to know, like, because everything, like the conundrum of all conundrums with artists today is, how do I get on a major like playlist or whatnot without having the relationship, without having all these different things? So like, what are those rules that exist within that space right now?
It's very good. I would feel uncomfortable calling them rules.
Okay,
it would be more best practices.
Best practices.
Because what I am going to say is anyone that talks about streaming music in particular and sounds like a smarty pants, to me instantly reveals they have no idea what they're talking about. All of us have been humbled. All of us are learning this. We're students.
Yes.
The relationship that we have, managers in the industry with Spotify, is not the same that it was 3 years ago. Structurally,
really? Wow.
The way to pitch things it changes again, like every 6 months. So, I think for the people listening to this, I mean, I think best practices. Well, I'm going to say one best practice. Overall is. We live in an era where people are like, okay, I did my Instagram, I did this, I have my YouTube thing, I'm checking off all these boxes. But what they're missing is they're not telling a story. They're just showing up to work. That actually releasing content is, I mean, that's what everyone does.
Yes.
It just doesn't mean it's compelling. It doesn't mean I don't know who you are.
Yes.
It would be like saying, hey, do you, you and your wife, do you want to hang out tonight and go see, I've got tickets for a concert tonight. You want to go? Not really. You know, because it's just, well, I got tickets to a show. Hey, I heard a song. You want to hear the new song?
Yeah.
Not really. But if it's, oh my gosh, there's this lady and she's from Eastern Europe, and she has a story and she communicates her faith through this, whatever.
Yeah.
Now you're intrigued. Now your brain is going, I can't process this. I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds so unusual. Now I'm curious. So I feel like it's, the storytelling, if you will, was really on when I worked at, EMI, which is now referred to as Universal or Capitol.
Yeah.
Most of the marketing I did was actually to gatekeepers. It was to tell radio stations about this artist or about this song, telling media outlets about this artist, about this song, whatever, getting it in film and TV. That's the only way I could get to the consumer.
Wow.
So it's an extraordinary time for a young artist to be able to, number one, release a song and anyone can hear it.
Wow.
But the challenge is how do you,
Present
it's like having your name we used to say name in the phone book. Like big deal. Everyone's name's in the phone book. It doesn't mean anyone's going to call. So it's how do you capture people's imagination?
Wow.
You know, and I think it's more than just, hey, let's just release a lot of content. It's what kind of content? Is it meeting people where they're at?
Yes.
Those kind, and again, that's where if an artist is staying up all night wondering, how do I capture people's imagination? How do I meet people where they're at? That's a really good thing to be.
Yeah.
That's kind of the job is to figure out how to inspire people and to tell stories. So anyway, I feel like that gets lost.
Yeah.
Because a lot of artists will go, okay, I've got a story, I'll tell it and all that. But what do you have to do? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. If you have a story, everything else falls into place.
Absolutely. That's something that we've talked about on the podcast a lot this season is like, how are you telling your story? How are you telling your story to your audience?
Right.
How are you engaging your audience with more than just the song? In 2017, after I had gotten off The Voice, one of the things, like, it was a conundrum in my mind. It was like, I don't want to release another song and it just get lost in the shuffle, you know? And that's when we started like essentially the law in Brian Nhira music that we will not release a song or whatever without a visual.
Yeah.
It will not be released without a visual. For your artist, what does that conversation usually look like with them?
It's a very good question, by the way. So you're a very good podcaster. That's a very good, I will say this. Every artist's story is different. Every artist's calling is different. Every artist's career is different. So it's not like there's a machine of, hey, let's just put you in the KB machine and you do that. There might be some things that worked that connect, great connection points with artists. But I do feel like everybody's story is unique. I think somebody, it's going to sound like I'm insulting TikTok. I'm not. I'm just saying, if you're a storyteller or a teacher, I think that is such a difficult platform to showcase that talent. So it doesn't mean that TikTok's bad or your message is bad. It just might not be a good combination. You've been to my office.
Yeah.
I have an autographed baseball from Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Baseball, not basketball. And it's a reminder for me often with artists, it's like sometimes there's nothing wrong with Michael Jordan. There's nothing wrong with the game of baseball. When he played baseball, he was better than you and me, but he didn't dominate. When he played basketball, he's the greatest of all time.
Yes.
And so
I beg to differ.
Well,
but that's another story.
What are you, LeBron or Kobe? Who do you?
That's a different podcast. That's a different podcast.
All right. Okay. All right. Mental note. Anyway. But my back on track. So it's I mean, there's not every medium is going to be a specialty.
Wow.
Like this is a long form conversation.
Yeah.
that would be really, really difficult to capture the essence of our conversation and what we're talking about now in just a still photograph on Instagram.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's everybody's a storyteller. Everyone's a marketer.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say too, this ties in a little bit to best practices, but I always, in telling a story, am I giving or taking? Is it like, hey, Brian, can you do me a favor? Can I borrow $20 and this and that? And here's why I need $20. And, or am I saying, hey, dude, I bought this book for you. I want you to have this book. I want to share this with you. Yeah. I created something just for you. I want to show you this. Yeah. That feels like giving rather than taking. And so I just feel a lot of storytellers, the story is, it's all about me. Whereas I feel like a really good storyteller, it's all about the listener.
Wow.
So anyway, that was kind of
that's so good.
A little bit of track.
That's so good because I think you're exactly right. Like what happens, especially when you're a younger creator, is it's all about you. Mm-hmm. It's all about you. It's all about them hearing your music. Yeah. It's all about them hearing what you have to say. Right. It's all about them, getting to your music.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's a book, and I cannot remember the author's name for the life of me. It's called Resonate.
Yeah.
And in it, she says, and I'm going to paraphrase a quote, so give me grace, listeners.
I've never read it, so I take it as the law.
She's talking to presenters, but I'll interpret this as artists. She says, your role as a storyteller, as a presenter, as an artist you're not Luke Skywalker. You're not there to show the listener, look how I can beat the enemy. Yeah. You're Yoda. You're the confidant. You're the encourager to the listener so that they are the audience, so that they can go fight their battle.
Yeah.
And that was like that metaphor was really stuck with me
that's so
good. So much so that I regret now not being able to pronounce their name, the author, but
it's okay.
But it's one of those things where I've had several artists say, "Oh, I want to start a movement with my music." Cool. What's the movement? Well, me. That's not really a movement.
Yeah.
So anyway,
wow, that's so good. I want to get to our next question. There's just so much value in everything that you're saying, and just your background speaks for itself. So this question number 2 that I have is, what are the benefits of being signed to a label versus being independent? Because I know that you've managed independent artists. I'm not sure if you're still managing, but you've managed independent artists and artists that are on the label.
Yeah, to me, it gets back to the Michael Jordan playing baseball or basketball.
Yeah.
So again, in your mind, I guess he would be the second best basketball player of all time.
I love Michael Jordan. It's 1A, 1B for me.
Okay, all right, okay, cool. Because you're destroying my metaphor, and I worked really hard. No, I'm teasing. I think for certain artists, I feel like a label is essential. For example, if your music is such where the main touch point between the consumer and your music is radio, there are exceptions. There are some outliers, but really that is it's a very expensive prospect to promote to radio by yourself. Yeah. So there's that. And there's also relationships that are really, really hard, if not impossible to replace. So,
what are some of those relationships?
Would just be, somebody that they're talking to I'm talking about radio stations. They're talking to every week.
Gotcha. I see.
Saying, look, I really need you to check out Brian's new single. Yeah. This is why I think will work. Here's some testing in other markets, the response it's gotten. Because if you get a song on radio, you're going to get traction. That is still, it depends on the format, of course, but that is going to work. Yeah. You are going to have a certain level of success. The question I have is not every artist, specifically like with Christian music, is necessarily their art, their craft doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fit the requirements, the parameters of what Christian radio is today.
Yeah.
Christian radio, the adult contemporary format is unashamedly, they're targeting a female 45 to 54 years old. That's their job, is to do that. It's not evil. It's not good. It's just that's what they're doing. That's the parameters of their format. That's their target. And they have research to back up that, that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
The challenge for artists are, well, what if I'm writing a song about relationships, or I'm writing a song about something that, addressing my doubts, or, I'm 56.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about different things than I did when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
My teens. Not that I've gotten better. Well, hopefully I've gotten a little wiser, but it's certain things that were more relevant to me at that age, at that chapter of my life, I'm thinking about it mainly through the eyes of my kids.
Yeah.
So just because an artist might be called to communicate a certain message or through a certain medium, and it doesn't fit the parameters of AC radio, doesn't mean it's not valid.
Yeah.
But it just means there's a different path to get that consumer.
Gotcha.
And to share that message. So I think, for example, back to labels, if the artists that I've worked with that have had success in the indie scene, radio they're not even thinking about that.
It. Gotcha.
And I think that's what's so exciting right now is the scoreboard's different.
It's different.
So you could, back to Michael Jordan playing baseball, you could be like, oh my gosh, well, he only scored, 5 runs. Well, in baseball, that's amazing. That's an amazing accomplishment. In basketball, scoring 5 points is pretty pedestrian. And if you're Michael Jordan, that's a really off night.
Yeah.
So just because you don't have a song on radio doesn't mean that you're a failure. It might mean you're supposed to be communicating this way.
Absolutely.
Somebody that's successful on TikTok and is engaging and captures the imagination of that audience through either humor or quick shots of entertainment. That's awesome. It also means they might not necessarily be an artist that can carry the weight of a 90-minute headlining concert.
Exactly. Yeah.
Doesn't mean, so it's really, we're talking about calling.
Yeah.
So a lot of what people that do what I do, you can't tell an artist, hey, you're called to do this.
No, you can't.
But you're helping them. I ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'm looking for clues of, what are they passionate about?
Yeah.
What are they getting a response from?
Yeah.
Those types of things. What somebody once asked me, it was asking me personally, what's that thing that you do that people marvel at?
Yeah.
And then he followed it up with, and we all have something that's like, oh yeah, I get a lot of affirmation about this one thing.
Yeah.
And his follow-up question is how much effort do you put on developing that thing? And most people, it's like, well, not a lot, just because it's, I just do my thing. Okay, well, maybe that's your gifting. That's a clue. That's a breadcrumb of,
yes,
you should probably investigate that a little bit more. So back to you, the really good question about labels and independence. I think it depends on what the target is.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like young artists today don't necessarily feel like I have to have a record label contract to validate my career.
Yeah.
In fact, just serendipitously, most of the young artists I talk to, it's almost a badge of honor of if I can connect with an audience without a label.
Yeah.
And again, that's just, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying
absolutely
it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
So it would be foolish for me to say on your podcast that this is the one right way to do it.
Yeah.
maybe there's, you're a very successful independent artist.
Yeah.
There might be a time in your life where a record label partner would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're a failure. Doesn't mean you're a success. It's just, it's a strategy.
Absolutely. I love how you equated it to a calling. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that a lot of people have trouble understanding or putting it in that perspective. It's more of like, can you get this or not?
Yeah.
Type deal.
Well, and part of, when somebody says something, you kind of know it. They're not saying it out loud.
Yeah, but they're saying
it.
Yeah.
A lot of artists what they're really trying to say is they're looking for validation.
Oh, 100%.
And so it's like, well, this will make me success. How do you know I'm a success? Well, because I have this many number of followers.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe. If I just get a record deal, I'm going to be happy. Okay, cool. I've got a record deal. Now, if I can just work with this producer, okay, great. Now, if I can just get like a radio hit, okay, you got one. Okay, now if I can just get on tour,
more. Yeah.
And if I could just have and it's like drinking salt water.
Yeah.
It doesn't quench their thirst because there's a lack of peace. And again, I think it's critical for an artist to be ambitious.
Yeah.
To have drive, because that also to me is most people that are called to things, they're passionate about it. They're going to do it, even if it looks ridiculous. Yeah, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's artists that are spiritually and emotionally and psychologically have self-awareness. Yeah. And also, I'll say one thing. In my experience, understanding calling, there's three things that most artists that I've worked with are like their top three struggles: fear, comparison, victimization. Wow. And so the victimization one is really dangerous. Ooh. Because that can cover a multitude of sins. It's Christian radio doesn't care about my stuff, and so blah blah blah, and it's like, it's okay. You're not targeting a 45 to 54-year-old female, but what are you saying? Yeah. What are you? Or it doesn't matter. Why even release music? It doesn't. Okay. Wow. And can I take it a deeper spiritual level?
Absolutely.
We were made in the image of a creator. Yeah. So when I create something or make something or dream something up, that's in my DNA. Yeah. It's in your DNA. Yeah. It's in everyone listening to our conversation right now, their DNA. Yeah. And so when we create, we're emulating, we're creating the image of God. We're being image bearers of God. There's also an evil one. There's an enemy who does not really care for our God very much. Yeah. And so when he sees us bear his image, it's disgusting. Yes. It's irritating. Yes. So if I'm a deceiver, all I'm trying to do is to get you to stop creating. Yeah. Stop creating. Brian, why are you doing this? You're not on a label. You're not on the radio. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You did this. You're too young. You're too old. You're not connected enough. You're whatever. Those are just, and when I talk to young artists that are in that stage, I'm like, can we write these things out? Wow. And they're ridiculous. Like when you see a lie, deception, all of us like to think, oh, I wouldn't fall for that. But I fall for that all the time. I'm not good enough or whatever. So that's where I think the Holy Spirit comes into play of reminding us of who our identity is my identity is not in what the radio charts say. It's not in the number of likes, my engagement percentage. Yeah. Particularly if you're saying something that's really challenging or difficult to an audience. Yeah. Something that doesn't mean that it's not valid. And using the scriptures as our guide.
100%.
When you look at the Psalms and you think, okay, really the Psalms are like liner notes, like lyric sheets. Yeah. we don't know what the tune sounds like. There's a lot of those Psalms that we do not sing I don't know about your church, but we don't sing them in our church of like, God, I'm so mad at you. I can't believe you. I'm here in a cave and Saul just threw a spear at my head and I've done all this stuff. And now where are you? You know, we don't, you know, that's punk rock or the blues or something.
Yeah.
But that is art that was inspired by the Holy Spirit. That's actually showing us that God can handle our frustrations. He can handle our misunderstandings. He can, you know, not everyone is supposed to, just because it's not popular.
Yeah.
Maybe you're supposed to sing one of those Psalms that in 2023 we don't really sing a whole lot.
I think
that's okay.
I think that is so important. Like these things that you're talking about is so important for people signed, not signed, to understand that it's deeper than whether you get some level of exposure. It's deeper than whether you are recognized or not. Like it's a calling. Yeah. And so when you recognize it's a calling, there's a maturity that you begin to walk in that allows you to fulfill your calling.
Right. The cliche of the tortured artist. Is unfortunately very, very true. Because there's artists that thought, hey, I've checked off all the boxes. And I thought it would feel better than this.
Wow.
And I did these things, or maybe I've even had a level of success.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go so far as to, you know, what does it gain to profit the world and lose your soul? I'm not saying like that, but having a song on radio, but they're frustrated because they're not really saying what they want to say.
Yeah.
Or they're being authentic to themselves.
Nick Barre, thank you so much for joining us on the Brian Nhira podcast today. This was absolute gold. I hope to have you on again because I know there's so much more we can talk about. But man, if you are an artist, I'm gonna give you Nick's email right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you can.
I'm just kidding.
Well, our website is proper management or propermgmt.com. It's
absolutely.
Not too. I think my email's on there. But yeah, you know, but just there's an info line. No, I love to, you know. It might take me a few days to get to your email, but I try to be really respectful and honoring of that.
Yeah. So. No, you're seriously a gem to this industry. You are, you've been a blessing to my life. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And I want to thank you all so much for taking time to listen to this episode of the Brian Nhira podcast. Make sure that you subscribe on whatever platform you like to listen or watch on. We'll see you next time.